From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Listeners of a certain age, do you remember how great Colorado's craft beer scene used to be? The late 90s and the early 2000s saw hundreds of small breweries and tap rooms spring up in communities all across the state. But in the last 5 years, around 140 breweries, tap rooms, and brew pubs have closed, including 40 that closed in 2025 alone. And while that still leaves more than 400 breweries across Colorado, the trend has many wondering if the market for craft beer is going flat. My guest today says not to worry, that this is a sign of an industry maturing and settling into its next phase. Jeff York is a professor of entrepreneurship at CU Boulder's Leeds School of Business, and he co-hosts a podcast about craft beer called Creative Distillation. He joined me to talk about how Colorado's local brewers can adapt to the changing landscape and why this ultimately could be a good thing for beer lovers. So how much of the decline in the last 5 years would you chalk up to just an oversaturation of breweries?
I believe most of it is that. There's always going to be breweries that vary in quality. And I think the days where you could have a brewery where the beer's okay are going to be gone, or are gone, actually. I feel like it's just kind of what happens when industries grow and then eventually hit a peak where the supply is just simply more than the demand that's out there. It's a bit of a perfect storm situation.
Well, overall, beer sales are down across the nation. They dropped about 6% in Colorado last year.
Right.
At the same time, there are some broader health-conscious movements happening. There's a rise in people doing dry January or cutting carbs, for example.
Sure.
How much of a factor are these trends in declining beer sales?
Well, I think it's, as I was saying, it's kind of a perfect storm. So you've got this situation where you have a large period of really, in my opinion, unsustainable growth coming into the pandemic. And during the pandemic, of course, alcohol sales went up for pretty obvious reasons. People were unhappy and turning to alcohol, and they were home and they weren't working as much. And so people were drinking more. And that really sent a false positive signal to breweries. They're coming out of this growth phase, and now they're hitting like even more growth. So this seems like a great time to expand. Right? I mean, that just makes sense if you're looking at the data. But of course, that was a false signal because, once the pandemic ended, we saw a big decline coming out. And that's when we really started to lose breweries in Colorado and nationally. And then on top of that, you had this trend of people deciding, well, I mean, clearly alcohol is not healthy for you. It is not, no matter how hard we try. And also the availability of alternatives, with cannabis being legalized and all sorts of innovation in cannabis-infused beverages, people have an alternative.
Sure.
So a lot of things coming together all at once. And of course, people choosing to abstain for health reasons and others.
Right. Well, Jeff, you have called this kind of a reset for the craft beer industry. And you talk about a couple of strategies that local breweries can adopt to stay viable. What are some of the things you see successful tap rooms doing right now?
Well, I think what you just said, Erin, is dead on. The tap room. Like, the margin on a pint of beer sold in a tap room is anywhere from 4 to 6x what it is taking that same beer and selling it in a can and distributing it. Not to mention, if you actually own a canning line, that's a fixed cost, a very expensive asset you're holding there. Yeah. So I read a brewer say the other day, the profit is in pulling pints. I think that's dead on. And that's where really the heart of Colorado craft brewing was. It's in these third place gathering sites. So for breweries really leaning into that community aspect, that local aspect, and trying to keep their fixed costs as low as possible is going to be the key to surviving this, in my opinion. The dream was just continuous growth. And unfortunately, in an industry that makes a thing to be consumed, that's just not generally possible. You can grow a lot, but not forever.
Jeff, you've talked about the dangers of expanding and how it can be risky. Talk about how much expansion should be part of a brewery's business plan at this moment.
Well, I hate to say this, but if your business plan relies on expansion, I don't think you should do that. I wouldn't invest in your business plan, and I don't think many people would.
Yeah.
It's just not the model that is going to work right now because you have shrinking demand and you have a lot of competition, and expansion is really tough. I mean, for a lot of reasons, the economic model is really hard. If you're going to expand, you're going to inherently have to be canning your beer, which is very expensive. Then you're going to have to be going through a distributor, which eats up some of your profits. The taxes are going to be more. The price you get in a grocery store is going to be less. You're just losing money on the same barrel of beer you could have sold in your tap room. And we've seen that with multiple breweries in Colorado. Many of the ones that have been negatively affected in this downturn are those that did expand, perhaps too quickly. Hard to say. In hindsight, it sure looks like it. So I don't think that's a business model that I would be very interested in right now. It worked great for a lot of the major craft breweries in Colorado, New Belgium, Oscar Blues,
Sure.
Sierra Nevada in California,
Yeah.
tons of these breweries. But that was during a different time period in a very different market.
It sounds like this speaks to right now focusing on your own community in your local tap room.
I think so. I mean, it's a really lucrative business if you are selling out of your own tap room. You just avoid a lot of those costs. Now, the challenge with that in Colorado, in particular, of course, as we all know, is real estate costs. If your tap room's too expensive, it's hard to make that margin work. So looking for those reasonably priced, perhaps overlooked areas that are expanding that you can draw people into. I mean, breweries a lot of times become the hub of expansion into different areas and neighborhoods. And I was looking at a map this morning a little bit about craft beer. There's a great website about craft beer in Colorado where they track that. And if you look out to the Eastern Plains, it's pretty empty out there. Might be an opportunity to go out there and be part of those communities as well.
Well, let's wrap up here with just look ahead to the next 2 to 5 years, Jeff. What does the next chapter in Colorado's craft beer industry look like?
I think it looks like a more of a mature industry. You're going to have less small players. There definitely is going to be some consolidation that's already happening. There's going to be acquisitions by larger conglomerates. That's already happening. But there's also going to be new entrants creating, hopefully, these smaller breweries more focused on being a neighborhood destination and less focused on trying to be a national brand and grow. That's what I believe and hope will play out because I want to have more breweries to go to and more new beers to try. So when you take a step back and being an academic like myself, you look at the whole industry and you say, well, this is not a death knell for an industry. I mean, this is just the pattern industries go through as they mature. I think you'll also see breweries doing a lot more low alcohol offerings.
Okay.
My personal favorite here in Boulder, Wild Provisions. They focus primarily on Czech Pilsners, and that place is fantastic.
Jeff York is a professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at CU Boulder's Leeds School of Business. We'll have links where you can read more about the state of the craft beer industry in our show notes and at KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.